In 1980, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is more than just a horror film. It's a labyrinth of terror where every shadow hides mysteries that have yet to be unraveled. Based on Stephen King's novel, the story follows writer Jack Torrance, who takes a job as the caretaker of the Overlook Hotel during a freezing winter, only to gradually lose his sanity and become a puppet in the hands of the supernatural forces lurking within. But behind the chilling scenes on screen lies an even more terrifying world behind the camera. Did you know that Kubrick actually got lost in the very maze he had built? Or that the set caught fire multiple times, nearly destroying the entire production?
Say, Lloyd, it seems I'm temporarily late.
The film also contains many strange differences from the original book, such as the disappearance of the hedge monsters and musical choices that leave viewers shivering. Let's explore the 20 most fascinating and bizarre facts about The Shining, from the haunting behind-the-scenes details to why the infamous elevator blood scene took a full year to complete. These secrets not only reveal Kubrick's obsessive perfectionism, but also give you a completely new perspective on the film.
Why?
I'm very confused.
20. The set caught fire. The Shining witnessed a real-life nightmare during filming. At Elstree Studios in England, where Stanley Kubrick built the elaborate interiors of the Overlook Hotel, a massive fire broke out. The flames started in the Colorado Lounge, set the central room of the hotel, where Jack Torrance gradually descends into madness. In an instant, the fire spread, destroying thousands of square meters of the studio, consuming 2 sound stages and threatening a third. Thick black smoke rose high enough to be seen miles away, sending Elstree into panic. The cause of the fire was never officially determined. Some crew members believed that the massive lighting system used to simulate natural sunlight from the windows overheated, causing an electrical short. Others argued that the tangled wires from hundreds of cameras and lights caught fire due to overload. Stanley Kubrick, famous for his obsession and attention to detail, was reportedly stunned as he watched months of preparation go up in flames. Despite estimated damages of $2.5 million and nearly 3 weeks of filming delays, Kubrick insisted on continuing. Immediately after the fire was extinguished, he demanded the entire set be rebuilt, even requiring higher ceilings and stronger lighting to leave no fear hidden. Fortunately, the main scenes had already been shot before the fire, so the crew only needed to restore part of the set. When the studio was rebuilt, the smell of smoke lingered in the air, a scent that sent shivers down many spines, as if the ghost of the Overlook Hotel still haunted the space. 19. Danny Torrance's final role. Audiences cannot forget the innocent yet haunting gaze of Danny Lloyd, who played Danny Torrance the child with the hidden shining ability at the Overlook Hotel. The role seemed like a brilliant start for a new Hollywood child star, but surprisingly, it became Lloyd's only feature film. After The Shining, he appeared only in a TV movie called Will G. Gordon Liddy, 1982, before leaving the screen forever. Years later, in an interview with the New York Daily News, Lloyd recalled, "We tried for years, until I got to high school and stopped at 14. I went almost nowhere." Interestingly, Danny Lloyd had no idea he was acting in a horror film. At just 5 years old, he was too young to comprehend the terrifying events around him. To protect him, Kubrick lied that they were filming a sad family movie, carefully staging all scary scenes, so Lloyd remained unaware. Throughout production, he only appeared in safe segments, while bloody or violent scenes were filmed separately. It wasn't until age 16, when rewatching The Shining, that Lloyd realised the truth and admitted he didn't find it scary, because I had seen it all behind the scenes. After leaving the film industry, Danny Lloyd chose a quiet life. He became a biology professor at a small college in Kentucky, avoiding the spotlight while maintaining a gentle connection to his past. In 2019, Lloyd made a surprise short cameo in Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, as a nostalgic greeting to audiences and his own childhood. 18. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy isn't in the book. A fascinating fact. The phrase "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy" does not appear in Stephen King's original novel. The scene where Wendy flips through Jack's manuscript only to discover that every page repeats the same sentence hundreds of times is the pinnacle of psychological terror. No blood is needed. Just the endless typed words are enough to make the audience feel the complete collapse of sanity. Behind this iconic scene lies a true behind-the-scenes nightmare. Kubrick, famed for his perfectionism, instructed his assistant Emilio D'Alessandro and the secretarial team to type hundreds of pages each, formatted differently. Sometimes run-on, sometimes misspelled, sometimes oddly indented. All to convey that Jack's madness was ordered and methodical. Kubrick believed viewers might not read every line, but their subconscious would sense the abnormal repetition. Moreover, in international versions of The Shining, Kubrick filmed the manuscript scene in multiple languages, each using an equivalent proverb to convey the same notion of obsession and insanity. In Italian, the line became "Il mattino ha l'oro in bocca." The morning has gold in its mouth. In German, it was "Was du heute kannst besorgen." Das Verschiebe nicht auf morgen. Don't put off today what you can do tomorrow. All conveyed the same truth. Endless repetition in words, actions, and mind is the gateway to a hell of madness. What do you think about this fact? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 17. The elevator scene took a year to complete. The blood-filled elevator scene is one of the most challenging sequences Kubrick ever filmed. Anyone who has seen it remembers the moment the elevator doors slowly open, releasing a flood of deep red blood that sweeps through the Overlook hotel hallway like a river of demons. But few know that creating those few terrifying seconds took Kubrick and his crew nearly a year of preparation testing and setup. They had to calculate how the liquid would pour and find the perfect shade of blood, thick, dark, and horrifying enough to feel real on camera, but not so fake as to look staged. According to Leon Vitali, Kubrick's close assistant, just testing the fake blood took weeks. The main shoot took place at Elstree Studios in England, with hundreds of gallons of red liquid filling the elevator. Kubrick used 4 cameras simultaneously, each at a different speed, to capture the perfect moment of the flood. But every attempt was a gamble. A mispour meant the hallway needed days to clean. The elevator had to be emptied and repainted, and the entire setup had to start over. One small mistake wasted thousands of litres of blood and a week of labour. When the scene was finally completed, Kubrick looked at the monitor and simply said, "It's right." Just 2 words, the result of nearly a year of obsessive perfectionist madness. None of the blood in the film is real, but the terror it evokes is entirely genuine. What do you think about this scene? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 16. No real snow. In the climax of the film, audiences are swallowed by a labyrinth of white snow, a cold, desolate world where Jack Torrance desperately hunts his son. But the chilling truth behind that scene? It wasn't cold at all. All the snow covering the Overlook Hotel was actually 900 tons of salt and crushed polystyrene foam, spread nearly 15 centimetres thick on the Elstree Studios set in England. Kubrick wanted everything to look real, with studio lights reflecting just like true snow outdoors, and he instructed the crew to continuously add more artificial snow whenever the camera moved, creating the illusion of a biting wind across the screen. The result was so visually striking that actors shivered under heavy layers, and the crew often found themselves gasping from the smell of salt and foam over multiple days of shooting. 15. Several scenes were cut for theatrical release. The film underwent a massive surgical edit after its initial release. When it first premiered in the US in 1980, it ran nearly 146 minutes, featuring numerous details that clarified the Torrance family's psychology and environment. But just weeks later, mixed audience reactions prompted Kubrick, an obsessive perfectionist, to make a bold decision. He cut over 25 minutes from the film. In the end, the genius director quietly sat in the editing room, removing dozens of scenes to make The Shining's terror more concentrated and suffocating. Deleted scenes included the doctor visiting Danny after his mysterious fainting spell, revealing Wendy's genuine worry. A longer interview between Jack and Ullman, exposing Jack's ambitions and simmering arrogance. A series of Dick Halloran struggling through the blizzard back to the hotel, even conversing with the maintenance staff in the garage, moments that made his rescue attempt even more desperate. A scene of Wendy running through a room full of skeletons was also cut a sequence that could chill viewers in a completely different way. Kubrick wanted the film to feel as oppressive as the Overlook Hotel itself. No breathing space, no refuge. He believed cutting explanatory or extended scenes would trap audiences completely in Jack Torrance's psychological maze, where every answer is swallowed by madness. The international version at just 119 minutes became a concentrated, tense and unforgettable experience. What do you think about this? Leave a comment below. The Shining was Kubrick's first horror film, but he never read Stephen King's script. Before The Shining, Kubrick had conquered nearly every cinematic genre from war drama, sci-fi to dark comedy. Yet he had never stepped into the realm of fear horror. After more than a decade of creation, Kubrick felt he was falling behind as the genre exploded in the 1970s. The push that truly captured his attention was The Exorcist 1973, the demonic film that terrified the world and achieved massive success. According to biographer John Baxter, Kubrick realized that fear, if controlled with intellect and precision, could be an incredibly powerful cinematic tool. Interestingly, Warner Brothers once offered him the chance to direct The Exorcist and its sequel, Exorcist II: The Heretic, but Kubrick declined, wanting total control from direction to production. Yet the seeds of a Kubrick horror were beginning to grow. He once told a friend that he wanted to create the scariest movie in the world, a film that terrifies viewers in their dreams. Beyond ambition, Kubrick began studying ghost stories, gothic tales, and psychological structures containing human obsession. When Stephen King's novel The Shining came to him, Kubrick saw it as the perfect opportunity to realize that obsession. Interestingly, he never read the entire script King had written, even bluntly, claiming King's prose was too weak to make a top-tier film. Instead, Kubrick collaborated with Diane Johnson, a novelist he admired for her work The Shadow Knows. The two locked themselves in an office for 11 weeks, exhausting every idea to create a haunting version of The Shining faithful to the novel's spirit, yet imbued with Kubrick's cold, obsessive style. This collaboration produced one of the most intellectually and visually terrifying horror films of all time, a work where fear stems not only from ghosts, but from the madness rising within the human mind. 13. The ending we saw is very different from the original. In fact, The Shining once had a completely different ending, one that was even screened in theatres for a week before disappearing without a trace. In the original version, after Jack Torrance dies, frozen in the maze, the film doesn't stop there. The next scene takes viewers to a hospital where Wendy and Danny are recovering from their ordeal at the Overlook Hotel. The hotel manager Ullman visits them gently, reassuring them that the police conducted a thorough investigation but found nothing unusual. He even invites mother and son to stay at his home for a while. The film initially ended with a cold text on a black screen. The Overlook Hotel will survive this tragedy as it has many others. The hotel remains open each year from May 20th to September 20th. However, just days after the premiere, Kubrick, notorious for his obsessive perfectionism, ordered all prints recalled to alter the ending. He completely removed the hospital scene, ensuring audiences would never know it had existed. The true reason remains a mystery, though many believe Kubrick felt the original ending was too safe, diminishing the ambiguity and dread he wanted to leave behind. By ending the film with the 1921 photo showing Jack amidst the ghostly party, Kubrick turned the story into a haunting, never-ending loop. Critic Roger Ebert later remarked that Kubrick was very wise to remove that scene. Had it remained, The Shining might have become merely an over-explained horror movie instead of an art piece, leaving audiences bewildered, chilled, and haunted. 12. Jack Torrance reads Playgirl magazine. From the opening minutes of The Shining, audiences sense something unusual about Jack Torrance, a latent instability beneath his calm exterior. But there is a fleeting, easily missed moment that reveals a chillingly curious detail. Jack is sitting in the Overlook hotel lobby and reading Playgirl. Yes, Playgirl. A magazine similar to Playboy, except aimed at female readers featuring nude men instead of women. At first glance, this might seem like a random prop, but for Kubrick, no detail is meaningless. Jack reading Playgirl not only creates a sense of strangeness, but also opens up numerous theories about his secret life and psychological breakdown. Could this be Kubrick, hinting at the disorder within Jack's mind, or simply a sign that the Overlook Hotel has begun manipulating him from the moment he arrived? And the strangest question remains, why is a magazine like this placed in the lobby of a luxury hotel? 11. Shelley Duvall's most grueling role. Duvall played Wendy Torrance, a fragile yet resilient wife facing her husband's descent into madness. When Kubrick cast Duvall, he saw in her a natural fragility that he wanted to push to the extreme. But no one, not even Duvall herself, could have anticipated that this role would become the most physically and mentally demanding challenge of her career. Kubrick, known for his obsessive perfectionism, shot the film in chronological order, a rare choice in cinema. He did this to gradually erode Shelley's psyche so that her fear, exhaustion and panic were genuine rather than acted. Over nearly 9 months of continuous filming, Duvall cried almost every day, sometimes for up to 12 hours straight, with scenes repeated dozens, even over 100 times. The most notorious was the scene where Wendy faces Jack Nicholson with a baseball bat, a single scene requiring 127 takes, setting a Guinness World Record for the most takes of a scene in cinematic history. The pressure took a serious toll on Duvall's health. In the making-of documentary Making The Shining, filmed by Kubrick's daughter, she appears gaunt with trembling hands, lamenting that her hair was falling out in clumps. Kubrick coldly instructed the crew, "Do not comfort Shelley." He believed that only through genuine isolation and exhaustion could Duvall fully inhabit Wendy. A woman cornered in the hellish Overlook Hotel. From May to October, Shelley lived in constant stress, sleepless, often ill, and later described it as the most difficult role I have ever played. Stanley pushed me harder than anyone before. The experience led Duvall to leave Hollywood for a long time, carrying the psychological scars of the film. In 2022, the Razzie Awards officially rescinded her Worst Actress nomination, acknowledging that Duvall's performance was a masterpiece forged under real-life crisis. Today, looking back, it's clear that Wendy's fear in her eyes was real, a woman trapped in a nightmare both on-screen and off. What do you think of Duvall's performance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 10. The film's title was inspired by a John Lennon song. The inspiration for the title, The Shining, actually came from music, specifically John Lennon's song, Instant Karma. In the song, Lennon repeatedly sings, "We all shine on." And that phrase sparked in King's mind the idea of people with special abilities shining with psychic powers. King once said that when he heard Lennon sing, he immediately thought of a kind of spiritual light connecting people, and that became the starting point for the haunted world of The Shining. Originally, King intended to title the novel The Shine, but upon realizing that the word shine had previously been used as a racial slur, he changed it to The Shining, preserving Lennon's spirit while creating a mysterious supernatural nuance. 9. Stephen King hated the film bitterly. Stephen King admitted that he had admired Kubrick for a long time and had high expectations for The Shining. But when the film was released, his feelings were not pride but extreme disappointment. In a 1983 interview with Playboy, King bluntly stated that while the film had a few scary, haunting moments, the rest plunged into cold boredom. For him, Kubrick's The Shining was no longer the tragic story of a man struggling with the demon within. It became a cold, impersonal depiction of madness. What frustrated King the most was the choice of Jack Nicholson for Jack Torrance. Nicholson is a great actor, but entirely unsuited for this role, King said. He argued that audiences having just seen Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest would immediately perceive madness from the first frame. But to King, Jack Torrance needed to be an ordinary man, a husband, a father slowly consumed by the darkness of the Overlook Hotel. If Jack was already insane, his downward spiral would no longer be frightening. Not stopping at criticising the actor, King also felt Kubrick distorted the spirit of the original story. In the novel, the horror arises from a mix of supernatural and human elements. Jack's weaknesses, addictions, and wounded pride. But Kubrick, a skeptic of the supernatural, turned the Overlook into a vague symbol of insanity. King's disappointment was so deep that he never forgave Kubrick. Even though the film was later celebrated as a cinematic masterpiece, King maintained his view for decades. In 1997, he personally adapted The Shining into a television miniseries faithful to the original novel. For him, it was the only way to restore the story's soul which he believed Kubrick had lost in the cold snow of the Overlook. 8. Stanley Kubrick revolutionized filming technology like Steadicam. In 1980, when most directors were still struggling with cumbersome dolly cameras, Kubrick decided to introduce a new technology, the Steadicam, into his film. Invented by Garrett Brown in 1975, the device is a mechanical arm that allows the camera to glide smoothly through space without shaking, creating a seamless, dreamlike motion. Kubrick, obsessed with perfection, not only used the Steadicam, he pushed it beyond technical limits previously tested in cinema. Garrett Brown was personally invited by Kubrick to Elstree Studios in England. There, he and the director operated the Steadicam to turn it into a unique tool. Kubrick demanded the camera glide just a few inches above the floor, moving smoothly behind young Danny as he rode his tricycle through the Overlook's hallways. Brown had to invent a low mode, a completely new technique at the time, allowing the camera to move inverted at the child's eye level. To maintain a stable speed, Kubrick even attached a speedometer to the dolly rig, ensuring that each repetition of the scene matched the exact pacing down to the second. 7. Room 237 was actually Room 217. Room 237 has become a horror icon. But in Stephen King's original novel, The Haunted Room was not 237, but 217, the source of terrifying illusions and supernatural mysteries. However, when Stanley Kubrick adapted The Shining for the screen, the number changed. The reason was that Timberline Lodge, used as the exterior for the Overlook Hotel, begged Kubrick to change the room number, fearing no one would dare enter the real Room 217 after the film's release. Kubrick agreed, choosing 237, a number that didn't exist in the hotel. Yet this small change sparked countless wild theories that 237 symbolized the distance from the Earth to the Moon, or that Kubrick was revealing a code confessing he faked the moon landing. Whatever the truth, from the moment the door to Room 237 opens, the boundary between reality and illusion is forever blurred. 6 other actors were considered for Jack. It's hard to imagine anyone other than Jack Nicholson embodying the deranged Jack Torrance in The Shining, with his razor-sharp gaze, terrifyingly crooked smile, and unpredictable energy. Nicholson turned a man losing his mind into an immortal horror icon. But few know that before Kubrick bet on Nicholson, several other actors were considered choices that make one wonder how differently cinematic history might have unfolded. During pre-production, many actors were mentioned for Jack Torrance, Robert De Niro, Robin Williams, Harrison Ford, even Chris Christopherson. Kubrick reportedly evaluated each one but found reasons to reject them. He felt De Niro was not frightening enough, Williams too unhinged in an uncontrollable way, and Ford too good and honest to become a father descending into nightmare. Only Nicholson, with his calm yet burning inner gaze, possessed the organised madness Kubrick sought, a man who could explode into disaster at the smallest spark. And so Kubrick finalised his choice. When Nicholson raised the axe, smashed through the bathroom door and shouted, "Here's Johnny!" he not only destroyed Wood but also etched his name into cinematic history. Robin Williams or Harrison Ford might have delivered a different Jack Torrance, perhaps more tragic or humorous. But no one could make the world shiver the way Jack Nicholson did. 5. The interior design of the Overlook Hotel is illogical. If you've watched The Shining and felt something of a quiet unease creeping through every frame of the Overlook Hotel, congratulations, you've fallen into Kubrick's most elaborate trap. It's no coincidence that the hallways seem endless doors open where they shouldn't, or light from a window falls into a room in the middle of the building. Film critic Rob Ager, a devoted fan, was the first to point out this spatial impossibility. Ullman's office has a window overlooking the outside, even though in the floor plan it is completely surrounded by other rooms. Or a hallway suddenly appearing from the Colorado Lounge leading nowhere, as if the Overlook itself bends and reshapes to trap those inside. But this strangeness isn't a technical mistake, it's intentional. Jan Harlan, the film's executive producer, stated in 2012, "Nothing in the Overlook is logical. The ballrooms, the enormous hallways, all were built to be impossible." Kubrick didn't want an old-fashioned haunted house where fear comes from ghosts flickering in the dark. He wanted a subconscious terror, something that confuses viewers without them knowing why. A misaligned door, a carpet pattern changing, or a table behind Jack suddenly disappearing. All are small disturbances, making the human brain doubt its own eyes. In Kubrick's world, the Overlook is a living creature, not a hotel. It breathes through endless corridors, changes shape when you turn your back, and ensures you never know where you truly are. Are you impressed with the hotel's design? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 4. Audiences never saw the evil hedge animals. What Stanley Kubrick's film audiences never saw were the hedge animals. Outside the Overlook Hotel, King describes a meticulously trimmed garden shaped into animals, lions, rabbits, sheepdogs, horses and cows. But at night, these leafy statues seemed to come alive silently, moving when no one was looking, creeping closer to their prey like creatures from a nightmare. Each time a character turned away, they advanced a few steps until the distance between life and death was measured in breaths. However, when Kubrick adapted The Shining for the screen, he ruthlessly cut this eerie detail. To him, moving hedge animals were ridiculous and unfilmable, unlikely to convey the subtle fear he desired. Instead, Kubrick created the hedge maze, a perfect symbol of disorientation and a mind unravelling. The maze is a metaphor for Jack Torrance's madness, where he endlessly runs around himself until being consumed. King later restored his hedge creatures in the 1997 TV version, more faithful to the original novel. 3. The soundtrack drew from various sources. The music in The Shining seeped into every frame and sank deep into the viewer's mind. From the very first seconds as the Torrance family car glides past the Colorado mountains, the main title, plays like an ominous warning. Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind, who previously collaborated with Kubrick on A Clockwork Orange, created a score using the ancient Dies Irae melody historically used in hymns about Judgment Day. Deep echoing electronic sounds like calls from hell foreshadow the tragedy that unfolds at the Overlook Hotel. However, behind this mystical facade lies an ironic truth. Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind composed hours of music, but Kubrick, ever the perfectionist, kept only a few segments. Instead, he selected pre-existing works from avant-garde composers such as Krzysztof Penderecki, György Ligeti, and Bela Bartok. Pieces like Penderecki's Polymorphia Utrenia or De Natura Sonoris No. 2 play during the most terrifying moments, as if the Overlook is breathing living and observing humans. Kubrick didn't just choose music, he sculpted fear with sound, using each note like a blade cutting into the audience's psyche. The result is a chaotic symphony between electronic and classical, artificial and supernatural. This daring combination elevated The Shining beyond conventional horror films. Every sound carries weight, screeching strings like the screams of lost souls, drums echoing Jack's repeated footsteps in the maze. Kubrick transformed music into a language of madness, and to this day, those eerie melodies linger in viewers' minds like an unbreakable curse. 2. Kubrick and crew got lost in the maze. The famous hedge maze outside the Overlook Hotel caused the film crew to sweat bullets. Stanley Kubrick, meticulous to the point of obsession, worried that the maze might be too easy to solve. One morning, he decided to test it himself. The result, according to crew anecdotes, was that Kubrick could not find his way out. The green walls towered above his head, the twists and turns and artificial fog completely disoriented him, and he had to rely on the crew to help him escape. 1. The Overlook Hotel website is run by the director of Toy Story 3. Did you know that the world's most famous fan site for The Shining is run by Lee Unkrich, the director of Toy Story 3? His site, the Overlook Hotel, is a true treasure trove containing rare behind-the-scenes photos, original designs, old posters, and tiny details only obsessive fans notice. Unkrich once told Vulture, "I created this website purely for selfish reasons. I had been collecting The Shining memorabilia for years, and I just wanted a place to organise it." It doesn't stop there. Unkrich also helped fund the documentary Room 237, which analyses the crazy hidden meanings in The Shining. And if you look closely, the Overlook's influence can be spotted in his Pixar films. The carpet in Sid's room in Toy Story mirrors the hotel floor. The garbage truck license plate reads RM237, and even the online nickname of the dinosaur Trixie is Velocista 237. So we've journeyed through 20 bizarre, haunting and mysterious facts about The Shining, one of the greatest horror films of all time. From unforgettable scenes, Kubrick's eccentric decisions to subtle details hidden in each frame, everything combined to create a masterpiece that has captivated and terrified audiences for over 40 years. And you, which fact do you find most fascinating? Leave a comment below to discuss. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more fascinating cinema stories. See you in the next video.